Okay, this is Chapter 8, Software for Active Learning. We are going to talk about the different types of commonly used application software for active learning that can be repurposed for teaching and learning, recognize, apply, and evaluate packaged and online academic software to enhance the teaching and learning process, identify the academic application of apps and application, and then evaluate the challenges and opportunities associated with integrating software into learning. Repurposing simply means using something in a different way than its intended purpose. So we tend to use software in different ways. For example, Microsoft Word. Microsoft Word was intended for businesses and the business industry. It was not intended for schools. So when we use that type of thing, it says here word processing can be used for group editing of essays, teacher grammar, teacher outlining, and so forth and so on. What was happening though is we were using it in the schools, and the people that wrote the code for the linguistics and or misspellings and subject to word, verb, narrative stuff, and all these other things that we teach kids in our writing classes were not happening on Microsoft Word because the people who wrote the code were not linguistic people or educational people. So that happened about 10 years ago. There was a big call for that to change, and about 5 years ago they started changing it. And with the newer Word versions, they are more academically cohesive with the language arts teachers out there. So we can also use things for repurposing, such as spreadsheets. Um, we can use to teach equations, databases, can demonstrate the Boolean logic, which I'm not going to get into, sorting. And then we can do a lot of things with presentation software like PowerPoint. We can do PowerPoint Jeopardy. We can do crossword puzzles. We can do all kinds of little games we can do in PowerPoint. So we're repurposing the software from its original intent. Desktop publishing, we can use all the graphics for professional layout that we would normally people in the industry use, but we can use it for telling stories, making movies, creating class newsletters. These types of software include like Adobe Illustrator and Adobe InDesign and Adobe Dreamweaver and stuff like that. It was really made for the industry, but we can use it in the schools. So we can also do stuff like use 3D and animation and all these types of things. We can also, and continuing with these draw and illustration programs, we can create images by layering objects. That's putting one object on top of another. Um, and they're really quick and easy. Both the draw and paint programs are. You probably are very familiar with them, but I have to go through this. Animation and 3D are out there, and they're a lot more popular now. So with animation projects, of course, we can create movies using animation and type. You know, the thing I always say is like stick figures. You know, we put like 5 stick figures in one in each frame, and they're doing different things. When we hit the button, it looks like they're moving, things like that. And when we do use animation, they like to use this thing called storyboarding, and we'll talk about that the next time we meet. But that's essentially the students will draw out on little little squares the scene and the movement in the scene and what's going to happen from one scene to another and things like that. So, and then 3D programs again, they use this thing called CGI, computer generated imagery, and um, they can create virtual worlds with that. Imaging software, again, that's you probably have on your iPhone some way to edit a photo of yourself and do things to it. So we repurpose that stuff to alter digital images. They can be standalone or packaged within a hardware. A lot of scanners have this type of stuff, software. You get it with the scanner itself for free. You can download a lot of photo stuff for free, as you probably know. And you can do special effects and things like that with these types of things. Reference software, we can, is mainly stuff like encyclopedia and dictionaries, so we can repurpose those into putting specific things on a wiki or so forth. We can have links to these things on our school websites and blackboards and stuff like that. So, and there's a ton of them out there. They're saying use a rubric to select the best one, which is always true. Academic software, software designed specifically to promote learning. So before we had the stuff we repurpose, now we're getting into stuff that is specifically designed for teachers. Oftentimes it's free, called freeware or shareware, where you use it and pass it on. One of the big ones are tutorials, just using some type of software to reinforce the learning and to help the students understand better. They generally include some type of multimedia, and they're really good for diverse learning styles. And some may have a classroom management component to track progress, and a lot of the good ones do. And there are also some are lines with standards. We just talked about tutorials. The self-paced ones that are online or software, it gives a student control, which is good. They can set their own pace. It's very stringent. It uses a systematic instructional design. There's not a lot of wiggle room. And it may not address all diverse cognitive styles. It may be something that's just like very rigid, and that's that. So when that happens, it could be very boring for the students, and a lot of students don't like tutorial software. But there's one called Khan Academy, and I don't know if you're familiar with it, but you should look it up on the internet. And it's a very good tutorial-based thing, and it's for all educational levels. So if you're having trouble as a college student with a particular subject, Khan Academy probably has something on it that can help you. Drill and practice software, also known as drill and kill software. It will reinforce previously presented content. It's designed for practice, so it's a lot of times it's like flashcards or something like that. It can track responses, that's good. Students control the pace, but not the path. Meaning, getting to mastery, you have to go from novice to master. You can't like start in the middle. And then it does use some type of multimedia. Again, it's generally like flashcard type situations. It might be a little bit more in depth than that, but that's generally what it is. And it is very boring for the students. Games can be great. Students like the games. but we have to make sure they're just not playing the game to get a good score and they're not really getting the content that we are trying to get them within the game. So we have adventure games, arcade games, puzzle games, all those types of things, and they're widely available. And we'll look at some of those in the next lecture. Simulations. We have all types of simulations like flight simulators, chemistry lab simulators, space and undersea simulations. So you're probably familiar with these types. They're, you're in a little virtual world of your own, and they can be very helpful, um, and they can show, how a potentially dangerous situation can occur within a lab, but nothing's going to blow up on while they're playing the game. So those types of things are good. Problem solving software. Those are really good because they help the student with their critical thinking and creativity out of the 4 C's. It helps them practice problem solving skills. It encourages forming and testing a hypothesis and applying theories. Um, Again, it can be used for collaboration, but mainly it's good for critical thinking and creativity. Generally has some type of multimedia built into it. And if you're going to use it as a team, it can be very useful. Brainstorming, we all know what brainstorming is, and a lot of times it's never done correctly, but there are stuff we can use to inhibit brainstorming techniques. Um, there's a thing called concept mapping, which I will show you at the next lecture. And if you want to look up concept mapping on the internet, you can. And I believe I showed it to you guys. I showed you the superhero content map, I believe. But that enables brainstorming ideas and experimenting with connections between them. It's visual, it can be colorful, it can be um, quite entertaining. It does encourage collaboration and critical thinking. And it helps the students grasp the big, large ideas and then try to whittle them down into individual, smaller portions. So concept mapping and brainstorming software can be very, very helpful. Academic databases, we use these for more of uh, administrative issues. So we usually just try to put types of academic information into these databases. Again, we talked about that. Um, we don't use physical cards anymore when we go to the media center, which used to be the library. So everything, all the database stuff like that's done on through digital means now. So authoring software, that just means that if you build a website through a product like Adobe Dreamweaver, the Dreamweaver would be an authoring software, and you're the author of what you're making in terms of that particular website. But if you get into actually making software or making an app, which is not that hard to do, making a movie, those are all examples of authoring software. It does promote a lot of creativity in the students, and when you do um, work with the students in groups, it's collaboration is there, communication, pretty much all the 4 C's are there. Content specific software, that's software that is content specific, haha. Meaning if it's going to be software for physical education, science education, math education, English education, technology education, whatever. So it's entirely unique to that content area. And those of you that are in these content areas will probably use them and probably have used them in the past. again, geography, social sciences, language arts, all these. We have a lot of content-specific software and apps and websites and all these things for that type of stuff. Apps for active learning. Again, we will be doing an app project. It says here more than 1 million apps available for Apple and Android. There's probably 2 million by now. This PowerPoint's about a year and a half old. It is amazing some of the educational apps that are out there. Um, you will be looking at those in a project we'll be doing. There's this issue of BYOD, bring your own device. Um, that can work in usually affluent schools where everybody has, the same types of phones, but in, urban and rural settings, that can be a problem because some kids just don't have phones and then they're left out and they're labeled and so forth. So the BYOD is a good idea, but sometimes it's not very practical. The opportunities are always great. Active learning software offers effective, innovative solutions for diverse learners, which is true. Offers dynamic, intuitive multimedia for diverse styles. Helps support individual learning. Reinforces the 21st century skills. And helps model digital age skills and good digital citizenship. And we're going to talk a lot about what good digital citizenship is in a later lecture. The challenges are schools may not want to put in software that you want to put in. That can be a problem. Software varies in quality. So you may want to use a rubric when you're choosing software. Uh, new softwares are always coming out. So we really have to take a look at what's out there when you buy something, updates and so forth, or you find something better. It could be actually a problem. Funding, always a problem. And then time. You may have to write a grant or whatever to do these types of things, but it can be worth it in the end. All right, thank you so much. Talk to you next time.